Hi everyone, welcome to Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel. It is so good to see everybody. How are you? It is episode number 166, I think. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. You guys are always appreciated. I just love it that you're all here. Let me just pull up the live chat. I know that you guys are already chatting away. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and for just being here. The live stream is a weekly event with all of our patrons of the community, and then the show is released later in the week to the public. So if you would like to be a part of everything that's going on in the live chat and be a part of the community, please think about heading over to patreon.com/wellforpearls. Welcome to returning viewers. Welcome to new viewers. I hope that you find something here that suits. This is a podcast dedicated to all things hand spinning and making with our hand spun yarns and talking about hand spun yarns and just all things hand spinning. So thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Kim and Wendy, and Sarah is here. Oh, it's so good to see you, Sarah. I hope that you're doing well. And to Glenda. And who else? We've got Dagmar and Diane, San, Kathleen, Leanne, Tracy. Thanks you guys for being here. Kelly's here, Dana, Mari is here. It's so good to see you guys. I hope baby Elsie is doing well, Mari. I just got back last night from being away all week. We were sort of semi-off-grid. We were in the Caribou, which is north of us in British Columbia here I live in the Pacific Northwest of North America. So I live in southwestern British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. And I took my mom and the truck and the trailer, and we headed up to the Caribou, and we were there for the past week. So I did have cell service off and on. There were dead spots in the campground that we were staying in, but we spent a lot of time at the beach just sitting, knitting and spinning. My mom is a crocheter. She brought her sketchbook to draw, and we just did nothing. Mike took Wednesday off and he drove up on Tuesday night, and him and I literally slept on the ground in the tent. I had forgotten all of our tenting, like our mats, and James got really scared and he didn't want to stay in the tent. So he went into the trailer, into the bed that I was in, one of the bunks, and I went out in the tent with Mike. And so we had a very sleepless night, but it was really good. So definitely worthwhile. Kind of one last hurrah, one last trip for the summer. So if you have sent me a message, if you have tried to get in touch, please know that I will respond to you this week when the kids are all settled into school. It is a long weekend here in Canada. There was years ago, I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, there was a interview podcast, a radio show on CBC Radio, which is our public broadcasting radio news network in Canada. And they did this thing about the Canadian year and about our calendar year. And because Labor Day weekend, which is this weekend right now, so it's Saturday, September 5th, 2020, this is a long weekend for us here. So everybody in the whole country is off on Monday, unless you're like me and you work shift work, and I work tomorrow. But the whole show was dedicated to this idea that in Canada, because school goes back around this time, and so some of the provinces go back in late August, some go back at the beginning of September. British Columbia goes back on Tuesday. Usually, this year's a little bit different for our public schools. But in Canada, our new year is actually Labor Day weekend. And a lot of people think of the year as starting right now. And that sort of the rest of the year, the rest of the world sort of celebrates New Year's at the beginning of January. But in Canada, we've got this kind of weird phenomenon where we have these couple of months of holiday time in July and August, and then our new year is the beginning of September. So I always feel that, and it's funny because Felicia Lowe of Sweet Georgia was talking about that on this past Taking Back Friday episode that she released yesterday about going back to school and the renewal. And I very much feel that way at this time of year. I love September. It's my favorite month of the year besides August, which is my other favorite month. So it was heaven, Diane. Yeah, thank you. We had a really, really good time. So let's get into the show. We've got some breed and color study for me to share with you. I've got some community participation, and then I've got a whole bunch of stuff over here in the area that is my table. So I'm excited to share it all with you. So let's get started. I love it when people in the live chat share where they're from, because I know many of you by name or by screen name, but it's really nice to see where people are from, because Christy shared she's from Michigan, Jean is from Florida, and yeah, it's just so good. Yeah, it's just really nice to see where people are from. If you're watching this later, don't forget to put the live chat sort of up on the screen so that you can kind of follow along, because you're able to do that later in the live chat replay. So a little bit of housekeeping, and oh, hi Pam, good to see you here. I do want to pull up my show notes because I need to know what I'm supposed to talk to you guys about. Otherwise, we just go in all sorts of directions, which is never a bad thing. But you know, sometimes it's nice to have some sort of a path. All right. So, housekeeping. The newsletter will be back online this month. I am going to, one of the things that I wanted to start doing this fall again after all of the being home for so long and the kids being home was to get the newsletter up and running again in September. So it's released once a month. It has links to everything that's kind of going on in the community. So it links to all of the things that are happening for people. Some of the links are for patrons. Some of the links are for everyone. So if you're interested in subscribing to that, it's once a month, and it's at wellforpearls.com. At the top, there's a bar at the top for you to put your email address into. Unbraided, the art and science of spinning color ebooks and book orders are available in the show notes. Everything is linked for you to follow. And the softcover copy of the How I Spin a Sock Study, all those essays that I wrote, is available in the links below. And for certain patrons, there's ebook links for you guys to download the ebook of that as well. So have a look at your Patreon tier and see if you qualify. For August community participation, we are tell us about a blend. So for September, this sort of giveaway is going to run all month. Tell us about a blend that you spun that you didn't expect to be as wonderful as it was, or a blend that you are dreaming about spinning. So this is a blend of fibers. It's not oh, I love Shetland, or I'm dreaming about spinning Shetland. Your blend might be that you are really excited about spinning Targhee silk, or merino bamboo nylon, or so tell us what you are dreaming about. So you can post that in the episode thread on Ravelry. Now, in the interest of accessibility, and I'll post the episode link in the live chat right now, so it is there for you guys. In the interest of accessibility, I know some people aren't using Ravelry anymore for accessibility issues and other issues. So if you would like to leave a comment here on YouTube, I will put those comments into the random number generator along with the ones from the episode thread. So comment below, tell us about a blend that you've spun that you didn't expect to be as wonderful as it was, or a blend that you are dreaming about spinning. So throw that into the comments below, and or into the episode thread, whatever you would like to do, and I will put all of those comments into a random number generator. And throughout the month there will be more comments on other videos, sort of, so every live stream through the month those comments will amass, and I will yeah, I'll just count them all up and we'll throw them into the giveaway. So I'm not sure what we're going to send out yet. I'm sort of still trying to figure that out. And I haven't had a chance because we got home last night. I didn't do August random number generator. So I will do that for next show so that we can do that. Book club met yesterday on Friday. They were doing Emma right now by Jane Austen, and I'm not sure if the remainder of the book is what we're doing next, and the book club will be meeting not this coming Friday, but the Friday after, and Becca will post the dates in the live chat, and that is for Patreon members. You can join the book discussion on the Slack channel, #books in that channel. And if you're having trouble, if you're in the general channel and you're having trouble in the Slack channel getting into the book club and the book channel, just tag me or Becca at Bethy40 and we'll help you access that. And my username on Slack is wellforpearls_admin. So don't try to chat with wellforpearls614. That's kind of like my test account for when I'm trying things out on Slack. So next Austen book club is the 18th. And they're going to finish up through chapter 42 for Emma. And then our anti-racist book club, we are picking our next book, and those dates will be released in September. So let's talk about Breed and Color Study. Breed and Color Study is sort of it's a community-wide study that we participate in for 6 months of the year, and then we shift and we do another study for another 6 months of the year. And right now, until the end of December, we are looking at Shoreline, and Katrina of Crafty Jack's Boutique at craftyjacks.ca, JAKS.ca, is our dyer, our in-house dyer, one of my best friends, and a wonderful, wonderful partner for this stuff. She created this bat out of Greta's photo, Greta at the Warmest Row. And we've been studying this. So we're looking at carded prep right now. And I wanted to share with you Sherry's project that she finished up, and also Maria's project that she finished up. So the first photo that just skimmed by before Maria's photo here was Sherry's photo, and she did something really interesting. So these are the flowers across the board that Greta photographed and that Katrina used as her inspiration photo. And what Sherry did was she separated the colors into flower groupings. So she blended it on a blending board into a bat. She stripped the bats and pre-drafted and spun at a ratio of 6.6 to 1 into a 2-ply. And I just love this gradation of color that she's created. This fiber from my stash had some Kemp, and it had a crisper feel than I expected for this breed. This spun up very nicely using a short forward. So that's this sort of inchworm method for those who are new. So you're holding your fiber supply and you're inchworming forward, that short forward, and allowing the twist into the drafting zone. So what she means by that is she was holding her fiber supply and she was drafting forward here, but there was twist between her hand and the fiber supply. And this is a really great way to sort of start to dabble in long draw without actually doing long draw. I did not use long draw as the fiber staple was so short, and I wanted to pick out the Kemp and the vegetable matter. VM is vegetable matter, as I came across those bits. This was a fun spin, and I had fun with the dyeing, my interpretation of the inspiration photo for the woolen spinning group for color study. I still need to count the yardage and finish the notes and specifics on my handspun page, but here's the final photo. Beautiful, Sherry, really beautiful. Oh yeah, the slightly mad batter back at Halloween. I don't even remember what year that was. I finally spun it on a girls' retreat about a year later with actually Mowry, who's in the chat, and Katrina and Felicia and our friend Jess. And I finally spun it up. And I can't remember what year that was though. Was it 2017 or was it 2018? And I put it to some crazy Halloween photo music that I had found that was under Creative Commons. It was free music to use. It was so crazy. I should link to that, Wendy. I should try to find that on YouTube and link to it. It's a public video. It's for everybody to watch. Yeah, that's totally what that makes me think of. So Maria, the other photo here, not this one, this is Sherry's, and then the next photo is Maria's photo. Post number 92 shares, my breeding color study became affected by the tweed challenge in the other spinning group. So group B right now for our 51 yarn spin along, which is a 2-year long spin along that we've been working on in woolen spinning. They're doing tweed right now, and so the combed tips and some earlier prepping of Finn lamb fleece united. I like trying to spin for smooth, more even yarn, but this was a fun process. It is good to make plans and have goals, but it is good to let some what if I tried this energy out every now and then. I absolutely agree, Maria, and what a wonderful result. Actually, of the skeins that are there, the one that I really like that really captured me was the light pink one that's third down. When the photos scroll again, you'll see it, and it's got a very tweedy feel to it, but because you've got those hits of that bright pink in there, I thought it just looked really neat. I just really liked it. So that is the third one down in the next photo. To figure out which way to point. The third one down there above the hot pink, I thought that skein was really pretty. So really well done. Thank you so much, Sherry and Maria, for sharing. I really appreciate it. So we've got Zero to Hero going on in the group as well, and Zero to Hero is a year-long sort of, and I think it's just going to go on indefinitely, but we'll start a new thread every year just to clean it up. It's a year-long sort of challenge, if you will, and hashtag Zero to Hero 2020 is sort of what we're using for the hashtag. The neat thing about Zero to Hero is that the community is supporting each other to go from the fiber, whatever that is, whether it's a raw fleece or comb top or something that's a challenge for you, all the way through to a finished item. So people have been posting their finished items now. We're sort of more than halfway through the year, and we start to get a lot of I finished photos now, and so I really wanted to share some of these because they're just amazing. So KTP31 shares, I finished my Gentle Morning spun from a CVM fleece. This is it here. Isn't it amazing? Look at that color. It looks amazing. The locks were flicked and then spun from the fold on my Magicraft Susie Pro. I like your wheel. We have the same wheel. Is a 2-ply final yarn. Total weight was 16.5 ounces with 1,126 yards used. So she used 1,100 yards. It was very warm yet lightweight, and it's perfect for chilly mornings. So this sweater, Gentle Morning by Trin Annalie, I will post the link to the project, to the pattern page in the show notes. I knit this back in March, or spun for it back in March, and I finished it at the end of May. And I wore it this past week on our trip every morning. I have worn it so much, and I did mine as a 2-ply, 3-ply. Cheviot. Now I'm forgetting. How can I forget? 3-ply. 3-ply Cheviot, and I used about 1,000 meters. It was just shy of 1,000 meters. I used 1,000 yards and 950 meters to knit this, and I had a teeny tiny bit of yarn left. Like you guys remember, like I had like nothing left. I was actually starting to think that I was going to have to spin more yarn, and I was really worried because I had asked Katrina to dye the yarn after I finished spinning, and she dyed it in her colorway Silver Mist. And I was sort of like, how am I going to get more spun, get it plied, and get it dyed and add it to the sweater? Because this was for our yarn substitution content that was our study that we did from May through to August, and that content is still available. If you join at any time, you can still access all that content. You just have to make sure you join the How I Spin tiers, and you just need to look at the tier description, and then you'll be able to access all of that as sort of archived content. And I remember sitting there and I'm knitting it and thinking, oh my goodness gracious, like what am I going to do? Anyways, in the end, that sweater is probably my most favorite thing I've ever made in my entire life. Like I have other projects that I love. I wore my shore cardigan that I just finished, which is why it's not on my dress form anymore, because I took it on our trip this past week as well, and I wore it as well. But my Gentle Morning has been my most favorite project. And I know that, so there's other people in our community. Pam is making one, and there's other people who are making them as well. So the Gentle Morning kind of along has sort of started a bit of a trend, but it is such a great pattern. It is an amazing pattern. It is very well written, and the buttonholes, sorry, are amazing. I use the buttonholes on my short cardigan. Like those are going to be my go-to buttonholes from now on. The pattern is worth every penny for just the buttonholes. And then Christina shares, she finally finished her Zero to Hero cardigan. She had some challenges with this project and at times contemplated abandoning it, but she decided it would be a great learning opportunity, so she carried on. The pattern is Elizabeth Zimmerman's, this is it here, a seamless yoke sweater. By the way, these are my favorite colors. So just so that you know, part of my reason why I love this sweater so much is the colors, which is based on measurement and gauge and ratios, so no actual pattern. If you guys haven't dabbled in Elizabeth Zimmerman's seamless yoke sweater, I would highly recommend that you do. I think it's in Knitting Without Tears. I think it's in the Opinionated Knitter. Maybe you guys can back me up in the chat. It's in a couple of her books. Oh, hi Jill, good to see you. I know it's in a couple of her books. Anyways, I used that pattern for a project that I did back in 2006, and it's still one of my most worn sweaters. It's a great pattern. My first issue was the yarn. The fiber was New Zealand Polworth, which was pilling as I knit, and while it felt and looked lovely, next time I would put more twist in, or in fact use a hardier fiber, as I think the pilling problem will go on for a long time. I also had issues with the dyeing process. The gold originally came out a green color, which luckily I was able to fix. And actually Christina shared quite a bit in Ravelry, and I think also, yeah, on Ravelry she posted some photos of what the yarn looked like before she made it the gold color. It was quite interesting. And secondly, knitting bottom up was difficult for the yoke sweater, as I could not work out where the main body would sit at the level of my underarm, making it difficult to calculate the yoke depth for my first yoke decrease. This also made it difficult to get the perfect sleeve length. I solved this by crossing my fingers. I love that. And thirdly, the button bands. I did them 3 times using the ratio of row and stitch gauge, and they still are not right. Not sure if I would fix this, hoping blocking will help. And I made a few other little mistakes, lots of pulling out and undoing. But now that I'm aware, hopefully I'll avoid next time. And despite some of these issues, I love how my cardigan turned out, especially for a first time yoke and colorwork piece, which feels so lovely and soft to wear. Christina, I think you did an amazing job. I think it looks amazing on you, and really well done. It's just beautiful. Yeah. Hey Brownberry says, I love the reminders of the project side of spinning. This is why we do this. This is why we talk about our projects, because it is so easy to spin and stash, and the project becomes the yarn. And I think while the project is the yarn, and I love the yarn, I think it's really important that we also make with our yarn so that we can learn. So yeah, it's true. And then Sharon at Frog Stitch, this yarn was spun from comb top that Bethy 40 sent me over a year ago. I had never spun comb top before, and I was quite afraid of its slipperiness at first. Everything fell into place soon enough. I have had a haircut since. Oh, COVID haircuts, hey? Anyway, Sharon, it looks amazing. And I was actually wondering what the sweater is that you're wearing underneath, because I suspect that you knit that. So thank you everybody for sharing, and thank you so much for participating in the Zero to Hero. Before we move on to my projects that are sitting here and what I want to talk about, which I didn't put in the show notes this week because I did the show notes before we left and I wasn't actually sure what I would do while we were gone. So I wanted to leave it kind of open. So the rest of the show is going to be kind of a bit ad lib, and I will add this stuff into the show notes this week when I have a chance to edit. I'm a little bit behind on getting timestamps into the YouTube videos. So thank you for your patience. I'll go back and do that this week. The kids start school on Tuesday. They go back a couple of days before the other schools, and they have a half day on Tuesday, and then they're in full day starting on Wednesday. So I'm excited for them. They're over the moon. They've got great classes. I'm excited for them for the year. Their class lists and who's in their class and their teachers and everything got posted at 3 p.m. on Friday. It's always 3 p.m. Friday before the Labor Day weekend for our school. And so the kids are over the moon. They're super excited. So kind of lessens the anxiety about going back on Tuesday. Ply Magazine very, very kindly sent me this book, A Spinner's Dozen, 14 Darn Useful Tools by Stephanie Gustad, and they asked me to do a review. So I took the book with me this past week and I didn't open it. So this will be up and coming in the next couple of weeks when I have a chance to sit with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and go through this. So thank you to Ply Magazine, and I look forward to sharing this with you guys. I always look forward to doing product reviews, and books, of course, are my favorite. I love books. Not books are my favorite reviews. Books are my favorite in terms of I love books, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. Actually, Maggie, you said makes me want to dig into another sweater spin. I love watching the progress of your sweater projects. So you're gonna have to keep sharing with us. So I have 4 things to share with you. First, I'm freezing. There's a reason why I'm only wearing a tank top. It's actually quite cold and overcast outside. But the reason why I'm wearing a tank top is because normally I'm sort of wearing a bit more, is because I finished my pink velvet while we were gone. It was the first thing that I did. So I was working on it in virtual spin group on Monday before we left. And I was going to put this on my dress form, and then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to disconnect my mic and I'm going to put it on and I'm going to talk about it. So I'm going to do that. But before I do, I did wash it and I blocked it last night. It was so hot yesterday that I decided after we got home that there would be enough time that it would be dry, and sure enough, it was dry within like 20 minutes. It was so hot outside. And I don't know that I've ever really shared with you guys how I block and finish my sweaters. So I thought that I would do that really quickly. So this is Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry. There's a little bit of a story about the collar and the ribbing at the top and whatnot. And I talked about that in, which episode was it? It was after we got back from Tumbler Ridge, after our trip. So that would have been the episode, not last weekend, but the weekend, maybe the weekend of the 16th. So 65, maybe episode 63, maybe. And so if you want to know more about what I did with the collar, maybe go back to that episode. I think, I know that episode was called Home Sweet Home. So look for that one. So I got home, and this is not hand spun. This is Jameson Spindrift, and this is Shetland, New England in the yoke, the contrast color. The main color is called Coral. I'm not sure what the blue is called, but it's Shetland, New England. And I filled up a sink of quite hot water. It was actually hotter than I wanted it to be, but by the time I put the sweater in and put my hands in, I was like, whoa, that's hot. So I just kind of left it because I didn't want to agitate it too much. But it does help the yarns lock together, especially when you've got color work. So in some ways it was a good thing. Anyways, I put a little bit of eucalyptus in, left it to soak for about 15 minutes. I was unloading the trailer while I was doing this, and came back in, drained the water, and then once the water was all drained, I just pushed on the sweater to get all of the water out and all of the excess wetness out as much as I could. And then I actually put my sweaters into the spin cycle on our washing machine. So I put it in there and it does a drain and spin, and it's an 8-minute cycle. And the first 2 minutes is drain, so there's nothing happening. And the last 2 minutes are the machine slowing down. And so I did that, and then I laid it out on my blocking mats. I didn't pin it, I didn't do anything. I just laid it out and I left it. And when it comes out of the spin cycle, yikes. Oh, my sleeve just went in my coffee. Bummer. When I put it in the spin cycle, it comes out, most of the sweaters, unless they're really, 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 really thick, they come out quite dry. So it doesn't take long for them to sort of finish up. Now, I ran out of the coral colorway, and actually all I have left is a little bit of a ball left. This is all I have left over, is this little bit here. I could have made the sleeves a bit longer as a result, but we were away, obviously, because I was finishing this up after we got to the campground on Monday. We had parked, and I was going to go back and add more to the sleeves and make them longer and whatnot, but I tried it on and they ended up being bracelet length because I didn't have enough to make full length sleeves. And I was sort of torn at that point about actually making the body of the sweater a bit longer, but I did a tubular cast off. So to undo all of that and knit it longer, I'm still torn about doing that. So I'm going to wear it a little bit and I'm going to see, because I have enough to make it another inch longer. It's only an inch. So let me unplug, let me put the sweater on, and then I'll talk to it. I definitely didn't want all of the feedback on the mic when I was moving it around on the sweater. So I thought, you know, if you guys don't mind having a little bit of a sort of a blank spot on the sound, if you guys are willing to tolerate that, then it means I can actually put the sweater on and I can actually show it to you. And I opened all the windows in here because it gets so hot from all the streaming equipment that I was like, I'm probably going to need a sweater anyways. So let me stand up because I've got lots of slack on the microphone and I can actually show this to you. And if you guys have any questions while I'm talking, please don't hesitate to speak up. I'm just going to move the chat box over here so that I can see you guys and see what you have to say. So I made the sweater. Let me just focus. I think I made it worse. Yeah, I totally made it worse. There we go. So I made the sweater longer than the coffee from my getting my sleeve in the in the coffee. So I made the sweater longer. It's supposed to be cropped. So the sweater is supposed to come to your natural waist. So my natural waist is here. I'm very long torsoed, as you can see. So from here, my natural waist to my underarm is 9 inches, and most conventional sweater patterns say knit straight for 4 inches and then start decreases, and it's sort of with the anticipation that a natural waist is sort of more like around 6 or 7 inches. So I'm quite long waisted because my natural waist is down here. So the length of the sweater is supposed to be, I think you're supposed to knit straight for like 8 inches, and then you start your ribbing and you cast on. So cast off. So I think the sweater, I might be totally wrong, but I think the length of the sweater is supposed to be 10 inches. So I knit mine to 14.5. So I wanted it to hit if I stand straight with my feet shoulder width apart, I'll turn to the camera, sorry. I wanted the sweater to hit my hip bone so that these are not high-waisted jeans. These are just normal waisted jeans. The waist is right here. But I do wear a lot of high-waisted jeans, which kind of hit more like up here, which I know you guys have seen. And I kind of wanted the sweater to hit like sort of mid-hip. I didn't want it to be super long, but I did kind of want it to be like a little bit longer. Like I wanted it to kind of be more like down here. So as you can see, I kind of pulled at it, but Mike actually said he likes it this way because with the sleeves being a little bit shorter, and if I take off my whoop, without anything on my, I could put like going out in the evening, I could put like a little bracelet on. I have a Celtic bracelet that I wear when we go out. Like I think it works really nicely. I think it's actually quite a nice length. It's got really good ease. It's not super tight. I did not do a gauge swatch. Do as I say, not as I do. The reason is because we were away. I started this when we were on our Tumbler Ridge trip, and we were in the truck, and I just started knitting, and I figured, well, if anything happens and I can't get gauge or something happens or whatever, I'm going to try it on as I go, and I'll just play it by ear. So I don't think that I'll probably undo the bottom edge. I suspect that I will leave it because undoing all of that tubular cast off, it like just doesn't make a lot of sense. I just can't see myself taking it apart. But it's got a lot of, there's a lot of positive ease. As you can see, it's not super tight. It's very wearable. I can quickly see this becoming my favorite sweater to wear as a like my favorite pullover. And actually, I will say, one thing about this sweater that I was really surprised about, this is my first Jameson Spindrift sweater, because I've been cleaning out my stash and airing out my stash and getting rid of tons and tons of yarn. So I reclaimed this from another project that I never finished because it didn't fit. And these two yarns happened to land together, and I looked at them and I was like, oh, I love that. So I just started looking for patterns right away. And I talked about this actually with you guys on the podcast. And I just cast it on. Like it was a total, like, and you know what I think? I think in some ways those are the best projects sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I didn't overthink the neck. I didn't overthink the colors. I didn't overthink like whether or not the yarn was going to work. I knew that it was the right weight of yarn. I knew that it was going to work, and I just started knitting. And I think sometimes we just overthink everything too much, you know? And so I'm calling this a win. In terms of sizing, I did knit, what size did I end up knitting? I was really torn about what size to knit. I went back and forth quite a few times about which size to knit. So I cast on for the 36, which is size 2. And I ended up doing the size 1, this size 32. And I think my gauge is a little bit bigger than the pattern. I can't exactly remember. I'll have to look back at my notes that I wrote down because I keep my notes in my knitting patterns in Google Drive. So I will have a look at that for you guys. So yeah, thank you so much, you guys. Really looks lovely with your hair and coloring. Thank you, Wendy, because these are not, the blue I wear all the time. Blue is one of my favorite colors. This actually is one of my most favorite colors of blue, kind of that tealy greeny blue. And this, because it's a tweed, it's got that real tweedy feel. But coral is not something that I wear at all. This is probably my second coral garment ever. So thank you. That's very kind. I think the length is fine where it is. Oh, thank you, Pam. Pam. I always get mixed up when I'm streaming. Who's who? Thank you, Pam. I think there's an undisclosed ambiguous age where crop tops no longer appeal. Childbearing, young children, activity levels, other apparel, all influence when we decide crops aren't for us. So that is so funny, Diane, that you would say that, because we had this whole conversation one day. The kids were still quite young, and I was breastfeeding. So I had Nora, I was still breastfeeding. I think Nora was about 14 months because it was right around the time that she started not being that interested anymore. And I was kind of getting to the point where I was sort of done because the whole time, so it is probably too much information, but whatever. Both of my kids, I think people need to talk about some of this stuff more because we don't talk about some of this stuff in our society. And then we have babies and we give the newborn to the mom and we're like, okay, breastfeed. And she's never like had any exposure in our Western world. And it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. So Nora was sort of starting to not be quite as interested, but through both of my, when the kids were babies, with both of the kids, I had low grade, very like, they were just low grade abscesses in the background the whole time. So it was very like, I kept it under control the whole time, but it wasn't a super painless experience for me. And so, Nora was starting to not be quite as interested. She was really, really loved, funnily enough, she loved water. Go figure. I think she was just busy. She was active. She was chasing around James. She didn't want to stop and feed. She wanted to just take a thing of water and eat and then go and play. Like, I think she was just more interested in the outside world. And I was kind of happy to let it go because I wanted to heal. And so, we had this whole, and so I was fiddling around with my shirt one day and we were out at a toddler thing and James was going this way and Nora wanted to feed and I was trying to sit down and you know how there's like that gap sometimes at the back of your jeans and my t-shirt was kind of coming up and I was trying to pull up my clothes because I'm like trying to like pull up the back of my jeans and I'm trying to fix my shirt and my girlfriend was like, this is why I stopped wearing mid-rise and low-waisted jeans. And I was like, what? Like it was this random comment. And she's like, this is why I wear high-waisted jeans now. And I kind of looked at her and I was like, what do you mean? And she said, I don't have to pull up my jeans. I don't have to worry about how they're fitting. I can just sit down or I can just bend over or I can twist or turn or lift the kid because I'm not pulling at my pants all the time. And I was like, that's brilliant. And so I went out the next day and I bought high-waisted jeans and I've never looked back. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny, Diane. Once I had 5 pregnancies, I never wanted to wear anything tight ever again. You know what? It's funny. I was talking to my mom about it this week. So my mom has always worn quite baggy clothing, and like she doesn't like anything fitted. She's always been very casual in how she dresses. And her and I had a conversation because she saw me knitting my Albini, which I'll share with you guys in a minute. And I said to her about how I was really enjoying looser fitting clothing, and I like stuff a lot looser now, and so on and so forth. And she said to me she actually thinks it's more flattering on a lot of women of all ages to have ease in our clothing and to not have stuff quite so tight. And I thought, yeah, you're right. It looks nice, you know. So Jean, no kids but 45 and I don't want to wear crops or low-waisted or low-waisted either. Love it. I can't read your comment out, Diane, but that's hilarious. It's funny too, actually, because I did knit a couple of those crops back in the spring for the Ashford for the Wheeler. And I don't actually think that either of those sweaters that I'll wear a lot because I don't wear stuff like that very often. So it'll be stuff that I save for when I'm going out, which is not very often, and of course now with the COVID, but yeah. Anyways, great conversation, you guys. Thank you for your kindness and thank you for your kind words. So, you know what I really like about some of the crops? I will say, like my Felix cardigan and my Simple Something, which was the one that I did with the Sweet Georgie yarn. I have a couple of dresses, and I got that idea from. Oh, Tracy, we're totally on the same length. She just said, but I'm comfortable wearing them over loose dresses. Yes. I'm finding that I like knit crops, but because they are fast, absolutely, and they use less yarn. But I'm only comfortably wearing them over loose dresses. So that's exactly what I was going to say. You read my mind, Tracy. The Love Note by Tin Can Knits. Mowry and I were at Knit City together last year. And we did one day together. And there were so many women around, so many women wearing the Love Note. And it looks amazing on all bodies, all sizes, all shapes. Her and I kept commenting on how amazing it looked on everybody we saw. We didn't see it on one person that it wasn't flattering. And of course that's a crop. But you know, they're so great over dresses and long tunic shirts. So that was kind of what I was thinking with those two, was I've got a couple of dresses that I don't wear very often, but if I put a sweater over top, it would just dress them way down and I could wear them with my Blundstones. And I've actually been thinking that that's what I'll do. Leggings for life. Absolutely, Jill. Yeah. I do really like the high-waisted jeans. I think they're really flattering on everyone. So that's one of those things. Yeah, a bit of ease in clothes makes it possible to be presentable at work and feels like I'm wearing pajamas. Absolutely. As somebody who wears pajamas to work, because I work in scrubs, be thankful that you don't have to wear scrubs to work. Yeah, but you're right. Just being a bit looser, and you can still look presentable. Like this sweater, you know, with what I'm wearing, it makes a really great outfit. So yeah. All right, you guys, let's move on. But I love that you guys are so positive about this. I have a niggling suspicion that there are so many crop sweaters and knitting patterns the past year or two due to no small part that the yardage and quickness of the knitting factor. I totally agree, Kelly. And it does make it possible, especially with some of the conversation that's going on over on Instagram and on Ravelry about yarn pricing. If a sweater is a crop and you don't need as much yardage, it really makes the sweater more accessible if you're going to use quite expensive yarn. You know, the difference between 800 yards of yarn and 15 or 1600 yards of yarn, that's double the price. So if you're looking at $200 or $300 for a sweater versus maybe 80 to 100, all of a sudden, it's still very expensive, and it's part of the reason why we spin and make our own yarn, but it also makes it a little bit more accessible. So yeah, they're definitely cheaper to knit. Absolutely, Diane. Okay, so let's talk about my Albini. I'm gonna just switch the cameras a little bit. Actually, no, I'm gonna leave it this way. I had finished 3 bobbins of my Shetland. This is my Shetland from Disdero Ranch. And I've just been spinning and plying and spinning and plying. I'm doing this on my Lendrum. I'm just spinning continuous backwards, 4 or 5 counts. This bobbin ended up being really super full. And it's sort of semi-long draw. I'm not smoothing at all. And then I need to fill these 2 bobbins up again. And then once they're a bit fuller, then I'll ply again, make another skein, and so on. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I don't want to have a whole bunch of extra yarn. I really want to make sure that I use up the yarn that I have. And this yarn is actually for my Albini. This was my little sample skein for this project. And so my Albini is by Orlane Suuche. And before we left last week, I actually plied up, and I didn't take a photo, of roughly 240 yards of this yarn. I'll hold it back here because I know the camera doesn't focus in otherwise. And this is 3-ply Shetland. I love this yarn. You know how sometimes you spin a yarn and you just are like, I love this. The last few yarns that I've made, pretty much all of the yarns that I've made this year have been like that for me. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what has changed. I've just been really enjoying what I've been making. So the 3-ply Shetland is about 340 yards. It came out really nicely. It's about 14 wraps per inch, which is a sport, which is what's called for in the pattern. And I washed it up the night before we left. So we left on Monday morning, first thing after a virtual spin group. And it was still a teeny bit damp, but I balled it up and I left it out in the sun while we were driving because it was quite a hot day. And I made some really good progress on my Albini. So this yarn is for my Albini, and the reason why I'm spinning, plying, knitting, spinning, plying, knitting is because I don't want to have a bunch of extra. The other reason is because a bunch of this Shetland I plied up, and I don't have it here. I think I put it in the other room in one of my glass vases to display until I'm ready to work with it. I plied it up as a 2-ply just to see which I liked better, the 3-ply or the 2-ply. And the 2-ply I'm going to put with another yarn when this is done. And I'm actually going to do a shawl with it. Was that my plan? A shawl, or I was going to do Velour by Andrea Mowry, but I think I'm kind of sweatered out. I think I'm going to do a shawl. And so I want to make sure that I have enough yarn. So when I skein it up, I'll check the yardage, and then I'll decide if I need to spin a little bit more and make more 2-ply. I don't think I'll need to, but just in case. So spin, knit, spin, knit, spin, knit. So this is Albini by Orlane Suuche. I'll link the pattern in the live chat for you guys. So pink velvet, this is the pink velvet pattern that I'm wearing. I'll link that in the show notes for you guys. And then Albini is this pattern here. I'm just catching up with chat. Oh, good to see you, Sarah. Thank you for tuning in. This is a top-down raglan. I've been doing a lot of top-down raglans. I have to admit, a yoked colorwork sweater was a really nice change. I've been doing a lot of raglans. My Sava Boleyn is a raglan. This is a raglan. Gentle Morning is a raglan. What else am I doing that's a raglan? Poet is a raglan. There was another sweater that was a raglan that I did recently. Shore Cardigan was a raglan. Simple Something was a raglan. Felix was a raglan. Copenhagen was a raglan. There's a theme here. Anyhow, so I had started this. I'm only going to put the one side on just because of the mic. So I had started this in the parking lot at work one morning, and I ran out of yarn, and I ran out sort of, I think I was like on the other side. I was about here-ish. And so out of this entire skein of yarn, I've gotten all the way down here. I've actually, because I'm just following the pattern, I'm totally mindlessly knitting this. I'm just following the pattern. I've actually started the waist decreases already because it's a slightly shaped sweater, very gentle, lots of positive ease. I'm knitting which size. So I was really torn about which size to make. How much ease do you want in your garments? It's like, if I put too much ease, then it's falling off, especially raglans. If you don't put enough, then it's tight and it's pulling across the front here at your button band. In the pattern photos, it's modeled on, I think it's modeled on her actually. It looks great. She's wearing it with about 4 inches of positive ease. Like, this is about, well, this is probably about 4 to 5 inches of positive ease. I'm always like, I don't know. So I started off with the size small, which I think is 37 3/4 for the sizing. But I ended up dividing for the extra small, which is 36 1/4. So I think that'll be fine. I'll put on the other side and I'll just try to not hit the mic. It's twisted behind me. And part of the reason why I'm actually, oh, sorry, I just hit the mic. There we go. So part of the reason why I divided was actually because the yoke was getting a bit too long, and you can see that I have to pick up stitches under here and finish off the sleeve, so it'll kind of cinch it up a little bit. But I showed it to my mom, and I showed her the back, which actually I'll turn this way so that you guys can see. And there's quite a bit, because there is quite a bit of ease in this, I sort of was like, I think if I make it any bigger and I add any more stitches, I think it'll actually just kind of be a bit too much. And the collar, when you add it, that will cinch it up as well. So there's a 1x1 ribbed collar, and then 1x1 rib, you pick up 1x1 rib, add the buttonholes, and it's got a split hem at the back, which is actually what I loved about it the most, and it's got pockets at the front. So the only thing that I'm kind of torn about with this, which kind of sounds funny, is I'm not sure if I'm going to dye this or not, because this is the natural shade of the Shetland, and I'm kind of torn about maybe throwing it into a natural dye bath after. but I might talk to Felicia or Katrina. Actually, I'll probably talk to both of them and ask them what they think about putting it into like a wash. So where the depth of shade is really, really minimal, and it would just give it a tint, because I would actually really like to make it kind of a forest green. But I also really like the sample because it's a rustic kind of natural brown color. I don't know what the yarn, what the colorway is called. Usually, sometimes it's posted in the, it's Moki, I don't actually know how to say that. I think it's Moki Elena 100% wool. I think they're singles actually. Yeah, they're singles. And she's just left it in the natural color. And I really, really like the sample. And she's got a blue button-up shirt underneath. And it just looks really nice. It's very much my style. So anyhow, I might just leave it. But I can't believe the yardage that I'm getting out of this particular yarn. And I'm just going to keep spinning and keep plying and keep spinning and keep plying. And I'm really, really enjoying it. So that's been a big, big win. Let me just put that off to the side. I don't want to lose my little sample. Oh, bye, Becca. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. That's awesome, Jill. Thank you for the pattern recommendation. I wonder what a logwood dye would look over that. Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I was thinking about logwood. I was also thinking about doing an acid dye. That's why I want to talk to Felicia and Katrina, and doing a wash of the green, or even a wash of blue. Yeah, so we'll see. All right, the next thing I wanted to share with you actually was my CVM Mohair spin. So I took this with us. I took my e-spinner with me, and I want to show you the photos. So I took some photos of what the campground looked like and stuff so that you guys could see. So we were just outside of Merritt, British Columbia, and at a place called Monk Lake, M-O-N-C-K, Monk Lake. And this was our campsite. And this is our little tiny trailer. It's a little 18-footer. And this was the lake. And it, honest to goodness, it looked like this every day. It was amazing. We were really, really lucked out with weather. It was hot. It was sunny. And I took my e-spinner. So I took my Ashford e-spinner. I have an Ashford e-spinner 3. And I took the bag. I normally don't take the bag. I just throw it into one of my baskets. But I took the bag so that I could take the Lazy Kate, and I took all 3 bobbins. And I took all of my CVM mohair, and I left, because I had been talking about this on the podcast on Sunday morning, and I had put it off to the side in one of the bowls that I had my spinning stuff in to talk to you guys about, and I left this at home. So this spin would actually be completely done if I hadn't have forgot this at home. So the nice thing is I'll be able to keep, I didn't make a spinner's control card because we were on the beach and doing fun things, but I'll be able to keep a sample of the singles, and I'll be able to keep a sample of the yarn. So I had 200, I had 200 grams of this, and this is 80% CVM, 20% mohair. And I had bought 2 100-gram pin drafted braids of this, so you can see that here. And I basically took the e-spinner down to the beach. I took my battery pack, and I was able to just sit and spin, and I spun and I spun and I spun, and I chit-chatted with my mom, and we had an absolutely great time. This was the pin drafted roving. So the first 100 grams of this is Small Bird Workshop, and she's located in Nanaimo, British Columbia. And she was supposed to be at Fibers West, which of course got canceled. And so I wanted to still support her because I had been planning on buying stuff from her, and to support her. It was her first time coming. She's going to be on Woolen Spinning Radio actually this fall, so look forward to that. And yeah, so I bought this from her. The first 100 grams was it was really clean. It drafted really beautifully. It was really, really easy to spin. I basically filled an entire bobbin with the first 100 grams. Well, not the whole first 100 grams because of course this was left behind, but the second 100 grams filled the whole bobbin. And the second 100 grams was actually a little bit greasy. It didn't feel like it was super clean, and my fingers had quite a bit of grease on them when I finished spinning it. But the nice thing was, because it's like wool and the mohair and the CVM, because of sort of spinning in the grease, if you will, I think it just wasn't scoured really super well at the mill. The fibers actually drafted really beautifully. So my spinning ended up being really even. And because I didn't have a control card or anything, I was like, well, this is just going to be intuitive spinning. It's going to come out the way it comes out. And so you can see the bobbin here. This was the leftovers from the second 100 grams, because what I did was I plied until I ran out of singles on the first bobbin, and then this week I'll spin this up, finish this off, and then I'll ply them and finish this yarn off. And actually it's kind of in kind of a weird way, it's not a bad thing that I ended up running out of that I didn't have the rest of the roving, because it wouldn't have fit on the bobbin anyways, because if you saw from that photo, the bobbin was full. So I kept the rotations. This is the plied yarn. I skeined it up this morning, so it hasn't been washed yet. I'm going to scour it, get it clean. I've got Unicorn Power Scour, and I'll just fill up the sink, put a little bit of that in, and I'll just I'll leave it to soak and get this clean. I can feel the grease on it. So it'll come out beautifully. I have no concerns about that whatsoever. And this yarn just came out I'm so happy with this, and I'm excited to finish off the rest. This is a light fingering, and the yardage is this unwashed, so I'll lose some yardage from the washing and the scouring, but it came out, there's 600 yards of yarn here. I spun it really fine, short, just continuous backward, completely on autopilot. And yeah, because the CVM and the mohair it just has, if it ended up being high twist, and if I had put in a lot of twist, it would have ended up being really wiry, and it would have lost something. It would have been hard, it would have been stiff, it wouldn't have been a really, it would have ended up being sock yarn, and I don't need 800 yards of sock yarn. So I kept it really low. So on my e-spinner, I don't have a Revolutions, oh sorry, I hit my mic again. I don't have a Revolutions like readout like you can get with some of them, like the Hanson, and I think the Degalis, they have like an RPM readout. With what I do is I just go by the o'clock. So what I did was, for the singles, I actually spun the singles at just 12 o'clock, which isn't really super fast for me. And I just made sure that the fiber was a little bit more than twist locked. So when I did my plyback test, I just made sure that there was a nice plyback test. It wasn't particularly firm. I would call it medium twist, not low twist, but it was kind of a medium twist. Kept it at 12. It just, was nice and even, spun really beautifully. And then for plying, I did crank it up to about 2 or 3 o'clock, but I kept the twist angle really gentle. So the twist angle is about 35 degrees. I don't know if I have one of my twist angle, I don't know if I have my protractor right here. I had a whole bunch, but I mailed them out. I think it's about 35 degrees. It's quite a gentle twist angle. So I wouldn't call this low twist. I would call this a medium twist yarn, but it's soft spun. It's not a hard yarn. It's going to have a lot of drape from the mohair. You're going to already see that it's got some drape. It's not particularly overly twisted. When it came off of my skein winder, it twisted once, but it's kind of lost that now because I've been playing with it. And it's still a little bit stiff from having the grease in it. So it was like this when it came off of the skein winder, which was exactly what I was looking for. So this is 600 yards. It'll shorten. It'll probably be more like 550, maybe, yeah, probably about that. And then I'll finish spinning this up and I'll finish this off this week. So yeah, super excited. Thank you, Jean, for your compliments on my sweater. You know, with top-down sweaters and with yarns, like when you've worked with them a lot, you kind of know what your knitting gauge is. I kind of knew what it would knit up like, and I sort of figured when I finished the short rows at the back of the sweater, after I did those initial 10 rows or so, I could get sort of a sense of how it was knitting up and what the gauge was, and because there's short row shaping at the back here, so you can see how the color work kind of swoops a little bit. And I checked my stitches at that point. I wasn't bang on, but I was off by like half a stitch, so I was happy with that. And actually, when you spin your sweater in the washing machine to dry it and finish it, it's really quite amazing how similar to your unwashed and blocked gauge you end up being. I found over the years that that's actually the closest thing to getting an accurate stitch gauge that I've ever found. So when I check my gauge, let me try to say that a little bit more eloquently. When I check my gauge prior to washing and blocking, so if I have my swatch, this is my swatch for Albini. When I have my swatch, if I check my gauge before washing and blocking, and then I go to wash and block, I spin my swatch in the washing machine and it comes out, more often than not, they're within about half a stitch of each other. They're pretty much the same. And I think part of that is that working to make sure that my knitting is very, very consistent. I try to make sure I have a very consistent tension on my needles. I make sure that my stitches are very even. And some of that's practice. Yeah, and so I do check my gauge before and after, and more often than not, they're pretty much the same. So the yarn fills in the spaces, and it doesn't look the same, but the gauge is generally within about half a stitch. It's very rare that my gauge changes very much from unwashed fabric through to finished fabric. We've talked a lot on the podcast about gauge and the issues with gauge and the difficulties with gauge. So I know that gauge is a big stumbling block for many of us, and sometimes it's worth it to just start knitting and check as you go. Yeah, and just sort of, you know, try to navigate it as best as you can, and just accept that sometimes you're going to have to rip stuff out. Yeah. What are you going to make with the CVM mohair yarn? You know what, Glenda? I don't know. With this much yardage, it's hard to justify not doing something with like a little bit bigger with it. But I don't know. I'm kind of, I might end up stashing it. I am thinking about dyeing it because it's very, very similar in color to my Albini. I was actually, okay, that's not true. I was thinking about either stashing it. I was also kind of thinking, I don't know what the yardage is, but I was kind of thinking about doing a love note. It's not a pattern that's particularly been on my radar. It's not something I'm like particularly enamored with, but after seeing so many with Mowry at Knit City, and the yardage is quite minimal. For the size that I would do, yeah, I only need 550 yards of yarn. 600 if I make it with quite a bit of ease. I probably would make that size actually. Yeah, so, and because of the reason why I was thinking the love note is because you hold that with a mohair. So the idea is that you hold sock weight or fingering weight yarn with a lace mohair, and the yarn is combined. So the yardage is 600 yards of the fingering and 600 yards of the mohair, because they're whole double. So you're really only looking at 600 yards of a yarn. And so because of the mohair in this and being a blend, it's got this really, really nice halo. And I kind of was thinking about that. I don't know if my gauge would be correct, because your wraps per inch of the yarns held together is about 14. But I don't know. I had kind of dabbled with maybe thinking about maybe doing that sweater. I haven't done a tin can knit sweater for a while, for a long time. I don't know. We'll see. Love note knit along, you guys. Yes, I like it. Absolutely, Mowry. And that would be like in commemoration of our day at Knit City together. Yeah. You know what? This is a great pattern. And because you can, after you finish the color work, you should totally knit it, Mowry. It would look amazing on you. After you finish the color work in the yoke, you knit straight. So there's rows at the bottom of the yoke before you separate for the sleeves and the body that you can add length. So once you finish the color work chart, if the yoke isn't deep enough yet, or it's not fitting you correctly, you can add rows, and they're just worked as raglan increases at the bottom there. And so I think that's part of the reason why I got a good fit, was when I finished the color work, I actually added a length of cable to my interchangeable needles to make it long, and I held it over me like a capelet. And I got Mike to hold it across the back. We were in the trailer, so I'm like trying to navigate in our little bathroom, like looking at it and trying to figure it out. But that really helped to kind of know where to separate. And of course I measured here to see how long this was. And once I separated and did one row around, I tried it on again. And that is the nice thing about top-down sweaters. You can try them on as you go. So. Oh, that's awesome, Leanne. So you're in as well. I could totally see this sweater actually on Maggie as well, the love note. If you guys don't know what the love note is, I will link it in the live chat, so it's there for you guys. So this yarn is the yarn from the thumbnail for the podcast this week. So this is my Meadow imitation yarn. It's done. So I skeined it up before we left and I didn't get it started. So this is actually, I didn't start this project because I've talked extensively about this yarn on the Wool Circle, which is our live stream that happens twice a month. So if you're interested in learning more about the Wool Circle, have a look at Patreon. This yarn is a 40% BFL. Now I'm forgetting. Oh my goodness, isn't that horrible? I'm actually forgetting what the ratios are because it's been a while. It's 40% BFL, 25% alpaca, 20% tussa silk, and 15% toe flax. And toe flax is the waist flax. It's the waist yarn. And where is the blog post about it? There is a blog post about this yarn. Let me just link it in the show notes. This blend, I got the idea for from the fiber company. It's one of their yarns called Meadow. And Kat had talked about, I was pulling up the live chat again, sorry guys. Kat had talked about a vest that she was casting on. And I had pulled out my Shoreline vest a couple of years ago to knit a different shawl out of that yarn and reclaim that yarn. And ever since I ripped it out, I kind of regretted it because I really liked that vest, but I never wore it. So it's kind of like that push and pull of like, should I knit it? Should I not knit it? And then in Swoon, that pattern is out of Swoon, Maine, the Shoreline vest. So I'll show that to you guys, what the vest pattern looks like that I pulled out. Because I immediately felt really inspired by what Kat had posted, but I didn't want to make that particular pattern. So this is the Shoreline vest. It's a great pattern, Carrie Bostick Hoge. And and I've already knit it, so I know that it's a great pattern. It's got that high-low hem, and based off of the Shore Cardigan, which I just finished knitting. I've gotten a lot of use out of this book. I've knit a number of patterns out of here. So this is the Shore Cardigan that I just finished. That is not the Shore Cardigan. That is a picture of a beach, which is there. So again, high-low hem and a raglan top. So I started looking through here while we were gone this past week, and I found this shawl. And this is by Layla Rab, and I love her shawls. I have her book. What's it called? 3 points, 4 points. I think it's called 3 points. Anyways, it's a shawl. If you haven't seen that book, I would highly recommend it. Layla Rab or Rabe, I'm not exactly sure how you say her last name. She's a very talented shawl designer. And so I was kind of thinking that I would use this yarn for that instead, because I just love this shawl. It's very simple. And then I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll look through her book and knit another shawl out of there, because I just finished another shawl from that book out of the yarn that I pulled from the Shoreline vest. Anyways, long story short, I decided to cast on the vest because that's what this yarn was for. And I dyed this with logwood at 1% depth of shade. Hopefully the camera will correct now that the white is gone from the book. And actually, unfortunately, I cast this on last night. We had a cul-de-sac girls evening, and it got too dark. Actually, I couldn't keep knitting, which is really unusual for me. But the seasons are changing. Like, we're definitely getting closer to the fall and the equinox, and it got really, really dark. So, and unfortunately my yarns got all twisted around here. I don't know what happened. The yarn gremlins must have gotten in there. Holy smokes, this is really tangled. Anyways, I really had high hopes for this yarn. I really had high hopes for how it would knit up. I was really excited about this yarn. I talked about it. This was the project that I was working on with the Wool Circle and making this blend. And I spun it up really quite quickly. It's about 215, 220-ish grams of fiber that I blended up on my blending board. And I started spinning. I passed it through my drum carder a number of times to really blend it well and make sure that I had a really beautifully blended product and a beautifully blended yarn. And I have not been disappointed thus far. It's been knitting up really, really nicely. So this is sort of just the beginning of the lower ribbing. It's a 2x2 rib. You cast on an unbelievable number of stitches, and you knit the ribbing first, and then you work short rows across the back. And one of the things that I had really regretted when I made my other one was not adding a few more short rows at the back. I just followed the pattern. So I am going to do that with this one. I'm going to add a few more short rows and just to kind of make that high-low hem a little bit more defined. But this yarn so far is knitting up really beautifully. So I'm hoping to make some progress on this over the next couple of weeks, and I'll keep you guys posted and keep you updated about it. So I'm hoping that it'll have, what drew me to what Kat had posted, the vest that she was knitting and the yarn that she was knitting it with, which is knit in that Meadow yarn. And I'm not sure what Kat's using for the project, but what drew me to it was the drape. You know, and so this has even though there's the 40% BFL in here, it's got a very planty feel still, even though there's that alpaca in there along with this silk. So there actually isn't very many plants. There's only a little bit of linen, a little bit of flax in there, that toe flax. But it just has a drape to it, and it has just sort of as I'm knitting with it, it doesn't feel like wool. It has a very blend feel, and this has completely ignited me and just made me so excited to go through my stash and create some more blends and to really kind of explore what else I could do and what else I could make. So that's going to be my focus for the fall. So I'm looking forward to that. And the dyeing went really super well. So there will be more details on this yarn and kind of the process and the project and how I made it and whatnot coming up later in the fall. So, and I'll keep on knitting in the meantime and tell you about that and about the fabric as I go. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys spending so much time with me and for taking time out of your Saturday morning to be here for the live stream. I really appreciate it. We will be streaming again next Saturday morning at the same time, 8:15 Pacific Daylight Time. Thank you for your kind comments on my pink velvet. It was really fun to make. The body, once you get down into the like just the main color, you know, it always gets to be a bit of a slog because the fun part of the yoke is done, but this was worth it to see it through. So thank you so much for your kind comments. If anybody wants to do a love note along, please let me know. Do you think you could have achieved a similar blend with only hand carders? Oh yeah, absolutely, Maggie. Oh, hi Linnea, good to see you. Absolutely, Maggie. I think you could make some row legs and you just make sure you do several passes on your hand cards so you get a really lovely product. That was what I found with the blending on the drum carder. I did have to put it through a number of times to really get it nicely blended, and I did it basically in 4 batches of 50 grams. And I just kept putting it through until it was really nicely blended. And even when I was spinning, it really made the spinning experience a lot easier and a lot nicer because it was so nicely blended. So just make sure you blend it really beautifully on your hand cards and then just make row legs and spin from your row legs. It would just be perfect. So yeah. If anybody doesn't have any other questions, I think we'll end it there. Queries and Explorations starts in about 25 minutes. So I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple minutes. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your participation and for your enthusiasm. And I want to wish you all a very, very happy beginning to your September. For those who are heading back to school, have headed back to school, or kind of getting into the swing of the fall, I hope that things are going well, and I hope that there isn't too much anxiety and worry, and I hope that you're just kind of getting back. And yes, love note along for sure. I will start a thread in the Ravelry group right away so that I don't forget. I'll do it right now, otherwise I will forget. So have a wonderful week. Those who are waiting on stuff in the mail from me for the Made with Love Along prizes and stuff, I will be sending that stuff out this week. So yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. And until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, and as always, happy dreaming. Bye, everyone.